The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and this particular episode of ForceCenter is the Book of Boba Fett report. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok, riding high atop a sweet, hungry bantha, ready to talk about both.
Sweet Hungry Bantha is just such an accurate description of what we saw, and a great 90s band. That's one that you would DJ back in the day, right?
They opened for Stabbing Westward, and Dishwalla. It's a great show. Great show.
Yeah, and Wookiees Who Can't Let It Go. That was another great 90s band that was featured emotionally in this episode.
Yes,
Wookiees Who Can't Let It Go.
On tour with Nerf Herder.
Exactly. We are very excited to dive in. We've been enjoying the Book of Boba Fett. We're enjoying analyzing it. We are on chapter 4. Chapter 4 is called The Gathering Storm, written as all the episodes are so far by Jon Favreau, directed by Kevin Tancharoen. Kevin Tancharoen is known, I think, to people in the general genre fandom for lots of things. He worked on an iteration of Mortal Kombat for the screen, lots of episodes directed of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., many CW superhero shows, and a ton more. It's a long list of credits. This chapter was about 44 minutes of actual story. We always like to start by setting our own scene as fans. Ken, did you do anything special? Did you do your normal midnight viewing?
I'm having a nerd paradise, Joseph. Let me just say that. Picked up some freelance work this week, so I'm working on something for fandom that's revolved around Boba Fett. So I'm doing that. I had to find some time to get some chapters in on High Republic, and then I had to finish all of that in time for Book of Boba Fett. Wow! Then I wake up and the Lord of the Rings first teaser for the Amazon show got me excited. What a time! Yes, I was up at midnight excited.
It was a good time for you, huh? Yeah, I took one of my patented Boba Fett naps. I lay really flat on the floor and try to imagine my past at about 11 p.m. and then wake up at about 11:45 p.m. ready to engage with the modern storyline of watching Boba Fett. I've been pulling out different Boba Fett action figures. I don't have a ton of them, but I have this Galaxy of Heroes one, which is that series they did where they had major characters in this little tube. And it's always looked fun, but now it kind of looks like if you put it flat on his back, like Boba Fett is actually in his Bactapod,
Nice.
napping with me while we watch the show. So that was really, really fun. Yeah, I had a ton of fun watching this one. Stayed up late to write down some thoughts. Went to bed at 3:30, and then pitched a show of my own. So I'm now really excited to get back into Boba Fett and talk about this show. I was like, all Boba Fett. Then my mind went somewhere else, and now it's happy to be back to Boba Fett.
Love that. Switching gears, but all in the same realm. This is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into this episode. What was your overall reaction to Chapter 4? Did you love it, like it, struggle with it at all? Where were you?
Man, I'm just in a weird spot as a Star Wars fan. I just enjoy Star Wars so much.
Weird.
Yeah, right. I'm not just, and I don't mean that to be snarky. You could take that snarky out there. And again, if we'll start this conversation this way, Joseph. If you don't like this stuff, that's fine. I just really, really liked this episode. There was so much in it for me. It was just one of the more fun ones of not just this season, but of even going back to Mando. Just some good Star Wars and the Return of the Jedi kid in me was smiling from ear to ear. Most of the time. And it is an episode, I think, that if you're not on board with the show, or if you're on the fence, you're just not sure. I just don't think this episode is going to be one that pulls you over, and you might never be pulled over. Favreau has clearly brought a distinct style and tone to Mando seasons 1 and 2, and now this one. And I think if you're not on board, I just don't think you are. And I actually, and I don't say that like any negative way, like that's just kind of where it is. Cause I just so happy after this episode.
Yeah, I love everything you're saying. I really loved this chapter. I think in some ways because it was a real expression of what this show is. There was no ambiguity. In fact, I think one of the great things that this chapter did is it took a lot of ideas and themes and things that were bubbling emotionally that you and I have talked about a lot on this podcast, other people have talked about, and made them explicit. And some of the themes and the ideas and motivations that I think a lot of us have analyzed and thought were there, Boba Fett just straight up said, So I think it was a real crystallizing episode in a great way. And then, yeah, same thing with the tone. To hear you talking about it, of just like, oh man, it was totally Star Wars. It was totally this brand of Star Wars. When you were talking, it made me think about the advice that we all give each other of like, don't try to be someone you're not, just be
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah.
And people will like you. And I think when it's a television show, the honest answer is absolutely be yourself. And the people who like that will like it.
Yeah.
And the people who don't will maybe go, wow, it's really that. It's not for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hopefully, and look, I have hopes that Kenobi has a little bit different kind of momentum and tone. I really want Andor to feel and look different. I mean, I'm there for those conversations too. But this one, this is what I thought. Almost to the point, maybe the show's stubborn. Maybe that's the one thing about it. It's just like, no, this is what we're doing. But it had some wonderful moments. We're going to discuss that. A lot of action moments with great purpose, but some of them that I just again was like 7-year-old Ken in 1983, little Kenny's going, oh yeah, that fits. That's what I would expect.
Yeah, right. I really thought of, we talk about the tip of the iceberg of Star Wars is really great at kind of just throwing out an idea, and then it makes you want to know more. The classic example being Kenobi mentioning the Clone Wars in the first film, and decades of what is that? And it's like that always. And I think the Mandalorian show, the Boba Fett show, have both been really like tip of the iceberg of what's the deal with Jawas? What's
Yeah.
the deal with the Tuskens? Do you want to see Jabba's kitchen? Hell yeah, I want to see Jabba's kitchen. It's such an embracing of this idea of tip of the iceberg, of that one little kernel of an idea was really interesting. So let's explore even more of it. And I think this episode had a ton of that.
Yeah, and one other thing for me too, and I'm almost asking you is just a big question here, Joseph. I think if you're a type of Star Wars fan that digs the Clone Wars, if you like the style and presentation of that series and many specific episodes, then I think this kind of Boba Fett episode is right up your alley. There's a lot of just the vibe, the feeling, and yes, you could make a Filoni reference here if you'd like, but I think even beyond that, where weird cute droids or banthas being fed, all these kind of things we're talking about, but also the action and also its own kind of weird pacing, as well as the deep themes. It just reminded me of a Clone Wars episode.
I think it really reminded me of the Clone Wars episode. I think it really reminds me of the prequel films as well. I think all these ingredients are in the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy as well, but it's more prominently a prequel era style to me.
Mhm.
And I think for me, what this show is, it's a lot about that tone of like, we don't want to sort of say, let's stay in this lane. There are elements of this chapter that were like a horror movie,
Mhm.
elements that were psychological drama, elements that were, a crime Godfather drama. But then also within that, there's just this sense of why not, this sense of utter whimsy, right? And I understand why some people who like I want to sink into a mood and I want to stay there would be like, okay, well, we're really learning about Boba's trauma of losing the Tuskens, and this is about life or death stakes for Fennec Shand, and now Boba Fett's running around a kitchen trying to whack a funny rabbit droid. What's that about? Like, I totally understand and respect that some people might not like that tonal shift, but like, yeah, for me, that's the prequels, right? That is, you watch Darth Maul slaughter Qui-Gon Jinn, and right around the same time, Jar Jar's hitting his crotch and going, whoa, that's a part of the
Mhm.
Star Wars aesthetic to me, that it refuses to stay in a tonal lane, and it's a
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we were just talking on an episode. I think it's one coming out, so no one's heard it yet. But talk about Rogue One, and Rogue One striking a great tone, but striking a tone and kind of sticking with it, unless you want to hang out with your friend Bor Gullet, and how that works for me. But I with you on there. I like following each episode on the journey it takes beyond the themes. We dig deep into themes. I just mean, yeah, it is a little weird. You kind of, I was even laughing. I was even kind of laughing at Fennec's reaction when he's chasing the left droid, the LAP droid.
You done now? Yeah.
From the Clone Wars. He's done now. And it was just like, it was really hilarious. And Grace, my partner, I always mention is it's a great barometer. Someone who loves Star Wars but doesn't live in it, just love that droid. She also loves cute things. Let's be honest, a little cute little animal droid. But yeah, and I understand if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, it just doesn't work for me," I don't. I'm not disagreeing with you. It is a different journey to follow, episode to episode.
Yeah, and it is an acquired taste, and I don't think it stays in a tonal lane. And I think if people are like, I like Rogue One more because it stays in a tonal lane, like, I get that. But for me, this is there are elements of it in original trilogy and sequel trilogy, but it's really, to me, super big prequel films, Clone Wars, where you can bounce
Mm.
from utter silliness and sincere cuteness of Boba's great relationship with the Bantha to super cool fight, and both things are a part of Star Wars, of this kind of Star Wars.
Absolutely. The Ewoks save the day, and Empire's pretty somber at times. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I also want to echo a great thing that you said is I really feel like this is a part of this Mando-verse, right? We'll talk more
Mm,
about those music cues at the end.
mm,
But Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian, those shows feel like they are very, very similar. They're interconnected tapestry, and they're all coming from certainly lots of creators, but
mm,
Favreau in particular.
mhm.
And I really like that, and I'm excited, to see more in different things as well, different, and I understand also if viewers kind of come to it and they're comparing like, well, Mandalorian was a Star Wars live action show, Book of Boba Fett is a live action show, and they're real similar in vibe.
Mhm,
If people are also fans of MCU, and out of the gate, MCU has had many more shows, and they've been vastly different in style and subject matter, and I just
mhm,
think it's kind of cool to acknowledge we're not there yet. These are meant to be similar. Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, and I think we're going to get a lot of different vibes even
mm.
this year.
So many hands on it, but I do think definitely this season, but Mando 1 and 2, they're movies from Favreau, Star Wars movies from Favreau. It's not put together like a normal TV show, including writer room structures and all those kind of things. It is him in a room writing and then taking it out to everyone else to get their hands on it, which they do. And yes, so I'm and the MCU thing is a great example, right? From
Yeah,
WandaVision and the wildness that was, just watching it from the trailers, you're like, what? It's a bunch of mad TV sketches about TV through history. Great. Loki, and then I'm a big fan of the Hawkeye series, which is more street level, different kind of vibe as well. And those are all working well collectively and independently.
yeah, exactly. And I think Star Wars is getting there, but I don't think that's what's being attempted right now. I think it's
Yeah.
it's it's staying in the same place. I think my other big reaction to this episode is I felt very satisfied by it. I felt like this chapter kind of had a nice complete story in thematics of itself, but also had this great hype for what's next.
Hmm.
And I scrolled through as many as I could find and remember, but I think we are now clear of most shots in the teasers and trailers. So I think we're really heading into beautiful unknown territory.
Yeah, there was that one trailer shot of Boba Fett's birthday party when they all brought the cake down, and I dreamed that. I dreamed that. That wasn't real. Okay.
Yeah, and the LEP droid burst out of the middle. Yeah, I remember that one.
Chasing a rat. It was great.
Absolutely great. All right, so then let's get into the big themes and ideas that are at stake in this episode, this chapter.
Mm.
Ken, where did your mind go for what the ideas were? What was at stake in this?
There's a big one I'm bursting to talk about, but I'm going to work up to that. Okay, it's like an episode or season of Ken's themes here. The one that was very prominent, I think, all through it, and it led into some of the other ones of this idea of I don't know, you go together versus alone, right? That big Star
Hmm.
Wars theme of connection, and I just love. There's two big things that really just made me hone in on this theme as I was going to bed too. Right now, you fall asleep, you watch the episode, you go to bed, and you're just like, what was that about? Ooh, what was that? Ooh, what does that mean? And very, very clearly, this 1-2 punch of Boba goes to get his ship, the fire spray, and cannot get it. He sees it. He's not dumb. Now's not the time. I'm one man and a bantha against this army, and I can't do it. And that, of course, it's a big theme moment. But I think one of the bigger theme moments is right after that, where he and the bantha are sitting there at the campfire, and she's hungry, and he shares his food. That's a cute little animal moment, but that's a big moment of him just kind of like, yep, oh, this is great. This is great. Oh, yeah, I'm not alone. Oh, yeah, I got something with me, and I got to, oh, yeah, connections, other people, thinking outside myself. And I think that just starts driving this theme forward.
Yeah, that was not him riding the bantha to Taco Bell. That was him saying to his buddy, "It's about time that we go to Taco Bell together," right? Like,
Mhm, mhm,
I think he actually does say, we need food, right?
mhm.
Yeah. So I think that is a huge one for me. Of that's been here in all the episodes, but I think it's really explicit in this episode. It's all the alone together your stuff, but you're talking about. But I really thought of it is kind of the key phrase of connection is strength.
Mhm.
It's something we were talking about last week, but Boba is explicit about it, right? In this chapter, he's been showing some level of mercy and using honor, and through that, building coalitions. The whole show, right? That's what he did with the Gamorreans. That's what he did with the Mod Kids, the Mos Vespa gang. Um, and this episode, he's really explicit as he builds a bond with Fennec,
Yeah.
that he learned this new way of being from the Tuscans, and that he specifically believes that connection is a strength, not a weakness. That great exchange between him and Fennec, where she says, living with the Tuscans has made you soft. And he says, no, it's made me strong. You can only get so far without a tribe.
Mhm.
Is a line that supported everything that's been happening in the previous chapters. And then I think you're so right. There are a bunch of versions of that in this chapter as well, of
Mhm.
Boba's bond and kindness to the Bantha, sharing food, and not just sending the Bantha away, but specifically encouraging her to mate. Not saying like, hey, Bantha, don't go be alone. Make some Bantha babies. Find a nice Bantha and make some Bantha babies. Don't be alone. You Bantha, you need your tribe too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of this, the flashback, right, is information that we know how it ends. We know that he and Fennec become bonded, but by going on the journey of his rescuing her with them, we get to see that Fennec is really uncertain
Yeah.
about this idea that connection could be strength. And, like all hunters, she is a lone wolf, and she values that. But the longer she stays with him, she sees the value in connection being strength and having a tribe. And that was really fun to watch. You go back and watch the episode again with that in mind, and look at the moments where things change for
Mhm.
Fennec, right?
Yeah.
You see him respecting her, that she calls out, let's do this. And he's like, great, I'll trust you. That he reflects back to her, like, I see your value. Your people need brains and muscles, and you actually have both. And then he actually like offers her loyalty, right? And reflects that he cares if she lives or dies, which, goes back to their initial interaction where she says, I take it I'm worth more alive. And the weight with which he says, you are.
Yeah.
It's about her, but it's about this whole philosophy as well.
Absolutely. I can offer you something no client ever has: loyalty. Great line. They had some wonderful exchanges in this, and I love seeing the journey of Fennec. Yeah, and that was one of the things. Like, well, hey, Fennec's a great character, but more Fennec, and I think we finally got the amount of Fennec that Fennec deserves in this episode. And I love what you said too. I want to highlight this as well, of just the truth of what Boba Fett is saying. He's not. It reminds me of that I talk about that favorite moment in Most Wanted, the Ray Carson young Solo and Kira book of when Kira really learns Han is good. Is he's not saying something to her that she's like, oh, you're right, I am smart and good. He is seeing what she actually is and acknowledging it and reflecting it back on her. And Fennec knows she's these things. She knows she's smart. She knows she's muscle as well. And to actually finally have someone acknowledge it and see it, that's where this, to me, the connection really grew right there in that moment.
Yeah, and I think we see that, respect for Fennec Shand in the fact that she's kind of in better shape. Boba's trying to get there, but I think that line that he has about his ship, that
Mhm.
she's all systems are go, but she's a little rusty. I'm paraphrasing about the ship, is also about Boba. So there's this real trust of like, yeah,
Mhm.
no, I need you by my side because you really have your bleep together, Fennec Shand.
Yeah, she does. A lot of bleep together in this episode, Fennec.
Yeah, yeah, and then for me, I think with this idea that connection is strength, there's some great clarity of Fennec's perspective, where I think she is seeing that, she is experiencing that with Boba. She knows that it can be a strength, but I think she's also very world weary, and like, Boba, you can't change everyone, you can't trust everyone. It worked out for me. Maybe it's going to work out for these Gamorreans. Maybe it's going to work out for this kid. It appears to be working out between you and this Rancor, but other people aren't going to change. And I think that was one of the great things of this episode, is it was a lot about change. We saw Boba change. We saw Fennec change. Everybody going through these transformations. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about Farsa Gwip's or great Garza Fwip, right?
Versus
Yeah.
what? But yeah.
I flipped them. Yes. About her perspective about the world changing.
Mm.
And then I think it's so powerful that we see characters who can't change, that Chrysanthemum can't change, that
Mhm.
the families aren't changing. They're just going to be neutral.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was real powerful stuff there. And I love what Fennec represents for him. In many ways, she is kind of our eyes on this world too, as she's, especially early episodes, explaining stuff to Boba Fett. I've seen that discussed in places as well, even in our ForceCenter Discord. So I love that kind of thing with her. But I just love that she is that world weariness. Is it only reinforces some of the choices Boba's making, and I love watching that journey. Even though sometimes I might see a scene and I go, well, I know what happens at the end of this. I really enjoy the character journey as they discover this in this moment. And when she says things like, hey, fear's pretty good. Have you considered fear? And she's still got that in her, or still just says, hey, that's a quicker path. And he's always turned away from that, or it just confirms his choices. That's what I love about their relationship.
Yeah, and it set up this great tension of to me of he can change. He's got other people around him who can change and can see that together is better. But is that gonna all fall apart? Is he has this conflict, and where's Fennec gonna land? Is that Fennec gonna be like, I shouldn't have believed you?
Yeah.
Is it gonna be a happy ending to the story? I certainly hope so, but it raises that tension where she's gonna go. There's a possibility where she could go, hey, I bought into this, together could be better, and then everybody backstabbed us. You brought in people, and they, our backs are full of knives, and it really is almost about the hope. It's hope and fear. It's Star Wars, like that. Boba's like, I believe people can change,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, I don't think they can, but I'm gonna give it a shot.
Yeah, that's all you can do. Yeah, and sometimes you're right; they might not change, and then we'll see what happens when that happens, when that
When
goes down.
that lack of change happens. Yeah. What were some other ideas for you?
Well, you talked about change. So I absolutely loved what this said. And I've said this before in the show. It actually is something I say in my stand-up back, and it's stuff that you and I have talked about off air, Joseph, about just life and the world. And a lot of us in the last 2 to 4 to 5 years, just a massive amount of change, social, economic, technology can keeps rolling forward. I really have this theme that is don't fight change, find your place in change. And this is where this episode just really reached out and spoke to me. And it spoke to me just this fun, weird, wild Star Wars way and a real direct way. A lot of people might use the term meta, but I got to wonder too, art emerges from the eras in which it's, created. And this idea of a lot of content, a lot of sequels, a lot of shows seem to be commenting on those that cannot change, or that times
Mhm.
change, generational change, which is just embedded into Star Wars right from the beginning. So to see it on display here, starting with the mods and the head modifier.
Mhm.
And just saying, aren't you a little old to be here? Carrying over some of the stuff from last week. We know, old man. I know who you are. And even this idea of, aren't you going to cover her up? And like, what? Cover up all that beautiful machinery? No, this is a new era. We're going forward, and we're proud of a lot of these things that we're discovering. I thought that was wonderful. And it all rolls into Crescent, right? We're getting there. Fett can't find his armor. He must accept where he is right now. Something big there. Boba Fett talking about wanting to form his own house, and that's changed. But the Crescent moment was where it was all just on the table, Joseph. It was all there for all of us. We sometimes are Crescent drunk at a bar, wanting to fight people, experiencing joy.
Right. It is such a great picture of an inability to change explicitly, because it's
Mhm.
that rivalry between the Wookiees and the Trandoshan's, right?
Yep.
There might be even more to the story,
Mhm.
but that idea of just like, I literally can't let this past go. That this the relationship that we have together is we do violence to one another, the Wookiees and the Trandoshans,
Yeah.
and I cannot stop that cycle. I cannot embrace a different reality at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, that I think that that makes Chrysanthemum this ticking time bomb that Boba Fett, in his hope and his mercy, has brought close.
Yeah, dangerously close, wonderfully close. I think a lot of people are so happy to have Chrysanthemum still hanging around. And by the way, I am too. It is very weird to see this wonderful comic book character that's been around for years just have a regular part in this TV show. It's
Yeah,
been
just
really
become
cool.
a major character. Yeah, and it's so great to go back to his first appearance and go, oh, is that just a cool, like, we needed a bounty hunter and he
Yeah,
snarled and it was awesome.
yeah.
And now
No,
here we are, 2 violent fights later.
yeah, you're so right. It's stuck in the cycle and everything. Even going back to last week, and they showed it in the previous on, right, where we're just like previously on episode last episode, where take it from me, a former bounty hunter, stop working for, what is it, Scud Rats, I think he says?
Scug holes.
Scug holes, Scud Rats, I want to see as well. Scug holes. But just to push in on Stanton's eyes in that moment. We keep talking about his eyes, the eyes of Kerry Jones there playing him. To see the eyes, and it doesn't register. Well, it registers that it's something maybe he should acknowledge, but Chrysanthemum doesn't want to acknowledge it, and that's why he's drunk at this bar. And to have this you're right, the Trandoshan passed right in front of him, all to roll into this wonderful Garza Fwip moment, which, because I'm wondering too, as this is good, and you see Boba Fett walk in, and some comical cowboy walks into a bar, body goes flying at him, kind of stuff too.
Take that, potted plant.
You're thinking, how's this going to end? And to have it be Garza in this real powerful moment, someone who's in really control of her sanctuary there, making these wonderful points. And I wrote the one down of thousands once cheered such a display, but those days have passed in this more civilized place, these more civilized times. What was once celebrated in bloodlust, the bloodlust in the arena is now seen as horror and cruelty. And that can go to a lot of places, wherever you want to take it. You can, like I said, it can be meta to the YouTube comments. It could be those who are like, "Where's my badass Boba Fett?" And it could also be just taken to us in our own lives. And I really took it in our own lives. Not that I fought in arenas, but just that growth and your art and your communication, your comedy and everything. And it's like, you could be the one that butts your head against the wall, or you could find your place in this new world and thrive, not just survive. And it's like, I'm cheering for Chrysanthemum. Just put the Trandoshan down. Don't rip his arm off. Pay the bar tab and go be friends with some Boba Fett. Go be friends. Find a new life.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm really interested to see if that's where the story is going. You're right. It has so many levels. It can be taken so many ways. I think that you can even take it in the actual story of Star Wars, right? This is the New Republic isn't there every day, every moment on Tatooine. They got their own system, but the Empire's fallen. It's a new dawn. The Hutts don't have control. Jabba the Hutt, is not ruling with fear anymore. Bib Fortuna was barely holding it together. And, there's this feeling that Garza Fwip is, she's trying to manipulate this situation to her best advantage of like, look, not everything has to change. We're still gambling.
Yeah.
This is still crime. We're still making money, but do we have to do it in this way that's so almost self-destructive, right? Of like, it's a different version. It's not just like Pollyanna, let's all link arms and everything will be fine. It's like, look, there's always going to be conflict. Things are always going to be hard, but why are we going to inflict this on ourselves? I have this nice operation here, which, it's not the skeezy, Chalmers Cantina. Nobody wants blood anywhere. These are nice people with money.
Yeah.
And why would you need to disrupt that? And then even more importantly, like, Chrysanthemum, what are you getting out of this? What's going to happen to you if you don't get out of this cycle? I love that that's the way she framed it for him was people love you. You've won everything you can. But if you just keep doing that, you're only going to be hurting yourself is I feel like kind of what was underneath that.
Yeah. Stasis is an emotional death.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, you picked out a bunch of the exact same quotes that I did. I think it's so great. I think one of the other elements of change is I felt this episode, this chapter, had a really visceral theme of like rebirth, of not just adapting to change, but being willing to physically and emotionally transform yourself, and lots of imagery that to me was really about rebirth, right? This is about Fennec's death, and that she is, literally modified and brought back from the brink of death, brought back and given a second chance, right? Even literally a shot of a new kind of blood, two different kinds of blood now pumped through her, right? And then when she gets this second chance, when she comes back to life, she could have just taken up Boba on the offer and just been dropped off or run away, but she gives herself a chance to try something new and be part of something more. It's a total rebirth for her.
I absolutely love this idea. It connects with this other thing I had of this true healing. We literally hear the line, "Congratulations, Master Vet. You are completely healed. What about the scars on the inside? Those will take longer." And we were talking about that in episode 1, chapter 1. Just good to see that the healing goes on and it's a longer process. I love what you're saying, tying this to Rebirth. Even little on a little level for me was Boba Fett just kind of correctly saying, "Hey, my armor says a lot that I sometimes, I can say, but no one's going to listen unless it's the armor." But having to literally go spelunking into Sarlacc and not be able to find it in this moment, and still knowing he needs it, like you said, sometimes the big goals remain the same, but how you get there is different. And love just him emerging new from his lessons in the desert.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there are a lot of moments of transformation for Boba Fett throughout this, and it's probably still more to come. But I think we've been following in the past the story of him kind of reclaiming his warrior status, and in the present, we're watching him try to be the leader that he wants to be. And I feel like this episode has a little sense of resolution up to a point on both of those things, right? That
Mm.
in the past he's got to take this next step to kind of re-enter his old world, to get his ship back, to get his armor back, to take the next step on the journey that he wants to. And there's some pretty literal kind of images of, yeah, like having to stare down into the hell that destroyed him and to have to like
Mhm.
go back to that hell and then literally kind of emerge from the Sarlacc is like a kind of rebirth. The fact that he is told by his valet droid there that he has completed his healing process,
Mm.
and he is literally emerging from what we've been talking about since the beginning of a womb-like amniotic bactopod, right? That he is in this episode, he is all caught up on rethinking the past, right?
Mhm.
I think the past stories are done. Maybe we'll get more flashbacks, but for me, that line of "you're all healed now" seemed to indicate
Mhm.
emotionally he's reviewed everything he needs to, and he is fully in the present moment.
Yeah.
He is fully reborn from warrior to leader.
Yeah, yeah, and look, could there be other timeline stuff? Yeah, absolutely. We could see some more, but I think you're right. It didn't just catch up to it in timeline; it caught up to it emotionally. Where I think the Boba Fett we know now, we see that journey a little more complete.
Yeah, and it that's kind of made explicit in chapter 1 when he says, the dreams are back, right? That he's
Yeah.
having a hard time moving past this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now it seems like he has, and I'm very interested to see how it goes if there are any more flashbacks. It felt to me like that was a kind of resolution. Obviously, timeline wise, we caught up to the story that we know. But
Mm-hmm.
how did you feel like that? Did you feel like that's not going to be the structure of the show? Now we're going to be in the present for the most part.
I think we might have moved past it. I'm definitely okay with that. There, I guess there could be little things around the corner, with Cobb Vanth and Din or whatever you want to say. There could be some more of that, but it just seems more than just even timeline, just emotionally, we don't need to go back because Boba Fett doesn't need to go back anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Last big theme or idea for me is I thought there was more clarity on life and death. And this has been in Boba's attitude toward it, right? I feel like this has been a question since he returned in Mandalorian, in particular, the tragedy episode where we're seeing this very honorable Boba of like fate steps in to rescue the wretched. I
Mhm.
rescued Fennec. We're bonded. Hey, we don't need to fight a Mandalorian. If you help me get my armor back, I'll protect your child. And he seems like, wow, what an honorable guy who thinks working together is better, who doesn't want to fight. And then the stormtroopers come and he's like, hello, death.
Yes.
Die 1,000 times, stormtroopers, right? So there's this great contrast. And I think it's had that question of like, where is he at? And I thought this episode had a lot of great things to show, like that Boba Fett values life, just like
Mm.
the idea of it, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, losing the Tuscans is personal for him, but the fact that he says, I tried to help them, and instead I got them massacred by Nikto speed bikers, right? There's this sense of this utter loss and maybe his own culpability for it, and that's the last thing he wants is a loss of life, particularly if it's his family. But then when he's arguing with Fennec Shannon, kind of making his point, I love these quotes of where he says, I'm tired of working for idiots who are going to get me killed, right?
Right. Right.
There's this idea that the way business has been conducted, like Garza Fwip is talking about, is just a bunch of, the royalty are moving the pawns around and the pawns are slaughtering each other to no point, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's got that great quote about how much money could be made, how many lives could be saved.
Yeah.
And particularly when he said how many lives could be saved, that wasn't super personal. That wasn't about, I might lose my life. That wasn't my family lost my life. Was him, I think, agreeing with Garza Fwip of like, the hell's the point of all this slaughter when we can do everything we want to do without the constant slaughter?
Yeah.
So I guess for me, I took it from a perspective of like, in an ideal situation to Boba's taste, death and violence doesn't have to be part of it. But then there's definitely some death in this episode.
Well, yeah, I guess if you deserve it from his point of view, and so far everyone has, right? And to look at that Mando season 2 episode, and just his reaction to stormtroopers, his reaction to the Empire when he says, "Oh, they're back." It just, he is in his own way has chosen sides there, and that goes to this idea of, you said it too, just even the change. It is not naive change. It is like, look around. We can still have what we want, but if you're tearing bricks down at the bottom of the foundation of this building here, what's that good? What good does that do for you, me, and anyone?
Yeah. And I just thought that that's what makes him an interesting character and a great a reason that I enjoy this show, that is in some ways a character study about him. Of there are definitely, to me, some mirrors with the Jedi. Of the Jedi have such a philosophy of let's protect life. All life is sacred. We do not want violence. We do not want conflict of any kind. We will only have conflict if it's defense. And if you really are going to keep hurting people, we're going to ask you to stop. And then we go to, verbal warning, hand, head, in terms of the cutoff order that I've joked about with the Jedi. But it feels a little bit like Boba is like that, of like, in an ideal situation, no violence. But then violence is a part of the reality. Like, he obviously, I don't think he's as tortured as the Jedi, and vengeance is on the table. And that's what was great about this episode. So many moments of mercy, connection. Let's not lose lives. Unless you've crossed me and you have it coming, then here you go in spades, right?
Yeah.
To see that contrast where you're like, how many lives could be saved versus taking out the Nikto gang? It's somewhat practical, but still, I'm going to till this that Sarlacc beast is going to die. I mean, that one I know is practical and Fennec does it, but I think on a thematic level, it's still like everything that's hurt me dies. He's got no at all hesitation about Bib Fortuna, right? Saying, I'm going to kill that bloated pig that double crossed me. That he's really fine with vengeance, and he is really fine with death, but within when he deems it necessary. And other than that, he wants to build coalitions.
Yeah, well, and look at his past. And when he says, "I'm tired of working for idiots who are going to get me killed," I think of Django. I would, Duke is a very smart gentleman, yes, but got him killed. He's carrying that scar around. Thinking, as he watches his dad, fly off. I know that's not necessarily the moment he's leaving to go to the Pechanaki Arena there, but it's just like this idea of my dad's job was this, and he worked for idiots, and he got killed for it, and I want to break that cycle too.
Yeah, and I'm sure Boba's had his times where, like these games where Vader sends us out to compete against each other. I'm not all caught up on the War of the Bounty Hunters, but like I think from Boba's perspective, like did that stuff have to happen? Like,
yeah,
what do we want to have happen? And I think that's becoming much more clear too. I have kind of made that assumption knowing more about Boba's history, but I like that it's becoming more clear in the actual show that, like, I'm tired of working for dishonorable people who do not say what they mean directly, are happy to backstab, are happy to set people against each other who don't need to be set against each other when they could accomplish the same goal without causing all this pain and suffering.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna rule like that. The Tuscans showed me it doesn't have to be that way. They could have killed me, and I'm gonna create a different way.
Yeah, which to me has been just kind of just buried in the DNA of the show from chapter 1 on, and I personally think the motivations of Boba Fett have been pretty clear from the start. But I think this might have been an episode for folks to see, to finally hear Boba Fett. Yeah, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I want to do, and this is what has been done to me. What I want to change.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's still more to come with that. Any other thoughts on the themes or central ideas of this chapter before we go to the bigger picture?
I think the last one I want to we'll transition it in a little bit of just, and we talked about a little bit. Is you talked about the connection and strength through connection, and I was talking about together versus alone, but all of this love it the big Star Wars theory of fighting for something, yourself, others, causes, something beyond just your own egotistical goals in the center, choosing a side, so to speak. And Boba Fett is choosing a big side, and that definitely is a Star Wars theme.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great big Star Wars theme. What other larger Star Wars themes or morality or perspective did you see reflected in this chapter?
There's this idea, the choices of community and connection, but also this idea of pushing towards the light. We often talk about the Force works in many different ways, and I think a lot of people have been seeing this now in Star Wars content. And I'm not saying Boba Fett's going to suddenly go to Jedi school should he get a brochure from Luke after Grogu, but. Yeah, it's part of that big Star Wars morality there, and how it's down to a micro level, and the choices you do, and always light side builds, as we say, and unless you're a Nikto biker gang who's caused some dark side problems, we will not build you up. So I love just seeing Boba Fett kind of making those choices, and in many ways going with his feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. I think there are some comparisons to be made on the Jedi philosophy. I don't think Boba is about to sign up. I don't think he's reciting the code anytime soon. I think it's just interesting that there are similarities, kind of a shattered mirror version of the Jedi,
Yeah.
because clearly he's fine with vengeance. Um,
Yeah, and it probably still has some issues with the Jedi to resolve.
I'm sure he's got some strong Jedi feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a lot, but the stronger together is such a huge theme of Star Wars, from the Ewoks to Padme reaching out to the Gungans to all of the moments of Rise of Skywalker of like, yeah, we're gonna go alone together. There are more of us, Poe. Like, just there's so many places that it's reflected in Star Wars, and it's really interesting to see that evolution where a hunter, someone has been told that what they're good for is fighting. What they're good for is fighting alone, and their only strength, is ripping arms off when they see their enemy in a bar. That's your only strength. To have somebody go, no, I think there's this other version of strength, is a huge Star Wars theme to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, I think the idea of like return and rebirth and completing a journey, that's just everywhere in Star Wars. I think that's really, one of the parts of Book of Boba Fett that makes it tied to the history of Star Wars to me. It's tapping into those kind of classic storytelling themes, very mythic storytelling themes of, this episode remind me of, Anakin's rebirth into Vader, his dark rebirth into Vader, and his rebirth into the light as Anakin. Luke's proud "I am a Jedi" moment. Like, I went through all this and I made it, right. I think a lot about Rise of Skywalker was all the main characters, Rey, Finn, Poe, confronting a little bit of who they were in the past, and somebody inviting them to go, you could come back here, you could stay there, and them all rejecting it and going, nope, nope, I'm going to move into the future. It's just such a big idea in Star Wars and in a lot of storytelling, but since Star Wars has this big mythic storytelling DNA, that return, rebirth, completion, I really like those vibes.
Oh yeah, it's I love following those journeys again, and it's like to me the true villains in Star Wars. There's a lot of redemption in Star Wars, and sometimes at the end, a character you were rooting against, suddenly you're like, well, I guess I got to. They made a nice decision, and I got to follow them. But I think there's a lot of characters in Star Wars who are bad from beginning to end because they don't change. They stick where they are. There is no emotional growth, no emotional push forward, and it's the big power grabs. It is Palpatine, the ultimate evil. I think of Hux, no real growth. Everything done out of vengeance and desire to destroy. And I think Star Wars has those examples of villains from beginning to end. And I think Boba Fett, someone who was viewed correctly, I think, as a villain for so long and still has some dark traits. And again, they're like, hey, everyone work together, and the drug trade will be all right here. There's some things to talk about, but I do love this journey that Star Wars has taken us on with this character.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way this story is told connects to other Star Wars stories too. That you're saying so many great things about change, and then it really invites that question of like, okay, well, how do you do it? You have that great phase about don't fight the change, find your place in it. Like, okay, well, how do people do that? And I feel like what this show is showing us is through these flashbacks, Boba Fett has a willingness to explore past trauma, not just go, no, it's,
Right.
I was wronged. It's everybody else's fault, right? Like that's Vader and Kylo Ren's line when they're not willing to look back at their own past trauma and just stay on the path that they're on, right?
Mhm.
Anakin was weak, so I killed him. Ben was weak, so I killed him, right? And this is so Boba Fett literally staring down, in specific shots into the mouth of his pain in the Sarlacc, to remember being vulnerable to admit, yeah, I was a little kid who was sad when my dad left.
Yeah.
That willingness to explore trauma gives him the strength to move on from it. And that reminds me of like Luke in The Last Jedi and, Obi-Wan. I think we're going to see a lot of this of I got to accept
Yeah.
what went wrong and I got to explore my part in it in order to move past it.
There's some strong mental health lessons here in the Book of Boba Fett.
Exactly.
Really is.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Last big thing for me that remind me of other big themes in Star Wars is we talk a lot about on the podcast about kind of the flowing in the organic versus the rigid in the mechanical. And sometimes that has literal representations in Star Wars, going back to Luke using the targeting computer, a literal mechanical machine, versus trusting his instincts and the old ghost man suddenly whispering in his ear. But this is a great episode where it is not even remotely literal. It's totally spiritual, right?
Yes.
Even the characters, the mods who are literally adding mechanical parts to their organic body, that is presented is an argument for change and adaptation of like by adding these mechanical elements, we are actually being more flowing and spiritually organic in that we are open to change and open to new ideas.
Yes, absolutely. To me, as how much of it is Star Wars not reclaiming that narrative in a different way or rewording it. It's actually it's almost like two separate things for me. Vader and half man, half machine is a different lesson, but this is like the machine side. It doesn't have to own you. It can now be a strength and to take that fear, to take that the literal scars of your past or mistakes and flip the narrative on it is almost kind of one of those things you were talking about of facing the trauma and everything. But I just took some of it, whether or not all of that is baked into every little word written in the scripts by Favreau. No, I don't think so. But I just really think it flows nicely in some of those bigger themes.
Absolutely. And it's just a part of Star Wars being a big tapestry. It is going to talk to itself, sometimes I think on purpose from the creators, and sometimes because it's just such a vast tapestry, all these little connections are going to emerge. So any other big ideas before we move on?
No. I definitely want to get to Bantha kisses and licks.
So the chapter of this one, the chapter title, The Gathering Storm, did that chapter title have extra depth to you, or did you feel like it was pretty straightforward?
Look, on one hand, I'll say this one's pretty straightforward, and we are really set up for the storm. We want the storm now. I don't know, but there's just some stuff. I love digging into the titles a little bit with Clone Wars and Bad Batch and this one. It's actually been real fun. And I think I think it's not just what's coming and what fight is coming. It is this inability of some to change, and the change that's going to be crashing against those that refuse to change is the true war for me versus just an actual fight with the Pikes that's coming. So I like that as well. Krrsantan, will he change? The Trandoshans don't look like they can. The Aqualish, maybe I think they can be convinced. There's that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we have hope for the Aqualish. Maybe that will be the next chapter title. Yeah, I agree. This one was good and moody and straightforward. I think it was about violence is coming, war is coming, but also Boba is to steal terminology from the Nile in the High Republic. He's gathering his storm. He's gathering his crew.
Totally.
Was there anything in this chapter that you disliked or questioned?
There was two. Well, one might be a lore or non-lore connection, but I'll submit it here.
Yeah.
This question I've already seen it go around of like, well, where did his spurs go? Right? We definitely didn't hear the spurs, and I just love because the real answer is, well, the Book of Boba Fett didn't exist when they put together that scene in season 1 of Mando. Now we got a different way to tell the story, and that's just a wonderful Star Wars tradition. We are the unreliable narrators, is the way I look at it there. So I think it's fun to discuss and fun to look at. I replayed the scene a few times, like, well, I guess the crunching of the sand kind of is, but I would say the spurs aren't there for my money. I don't know if anyone disagrees.
Did you compare to chapter 5 of season 1 of Mando to hear the sound difference?
I didn't do it directly. I just was seeing it in some conversations, so I haven't had a chance to fully research it yet.
Yeah, I don't actually trust my ears because when I realized that's what we were seeing, that was the scene that we're going to tell the story of Boba rescuing Fennec. I thought I heard spurs, but it might have been the power of suggestion that I turned Sand Crunch into spurs in my mind.
I think I was making the spurs in my head. I was, but my whole point of this is I don't even dislike it or question it. On one level, I'm like, if that's part of it. In fact, Under the Helmet, they spend a lot of time on the spurs, and they show that scene.
Yeah,
and Ben Burtt's talking about it, so we know it's there. Again, the reality is now they get to retell the story. It's not unlike Filoni reworking parts of the Ahsoka novel from E.K. Johnston, because now he can. I think that's part of Star Wars tradition. You can make your Leia remembering her mom jokes here now if you want. But it made me think about it a lot. Just like, hey, which I just wouldn't have tracked to have the spurs unless you went to the Tuscan supply store and got spurs. But it was an interesting moment, and about moving forward and growing with the story.
I think there have always been bone spurs, and maybe he's healed up. I don't know.
Yes.
What was the other one? You said there was two things that you had.
There was the two. Oh gosh, what did? You know what? It was. Yeah. There it is. I want to discuss a little bit of pacing, right? And I think it's easy to say, and it's not incorrect to say, the show has its own pace. Mm-hmm. And there were some longer sequences here. I've already heard a few people, even our buddy Alex, Damon discussing the longer drawn out scene on Fennec. And I think that does pop up from time to time in this show. But I think this show just really has its own ideas of what it wants to do. And I really enjoyed that part of it there. Some of the stuff does seem long, but then again, the IG-11 rebuilding monologue seemed long. And I think that's the core of the absolute core of season one of Mandalorian, So I don't think the rebuilding of Fennec necessarily was, but the highlight on it was important as well. So anyways, I know that conversation comes up, and I just watched Eternals, which had a lot of pacing questions around it. I think that comes up a lot, but I just think it's the way this story wants to be told.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And I totally respect anybody who watches it and just has the, subjective taste opinion of that's too slow for me. Or, you wait a week and you're really excited about what happens next. So I think that can add to it. If you're really hungry for what happens next, you want this scene to wrap up because you kind of figure, I know what's going on in it. Like, I really understand that. But for myself, I think that there can sometimes be a sort of in agreement of exactly how long a scene should be. This is a thing that I encounter, trying to work in the industry of writing. This is exactly how long a scene should be on page number. There can be kind of best practices to make things the way that most people expect them to be. And I think for me as a writer and as a viewer, I want to respect those rules when they really make sense to me. But if I want to create something different, I don't want to be beholden to the sort of the average, the general common denominator agreed on. That's about the length, right? Yeah. For me, what is powerful in lots of bits of Mandalorian and certainly in Book of Boba Fett is if you stay in a scene longer and you're really and you have the audience really engaged, you'll start to feel things more. If you watch Boba slowly ride a bantha, you'll get into the rhythm of that. And for me, when I can have the patience to let myself do that, I get so much more out of it because I feel more connected to it. I feel that rhythm. I start to feel the itch of the sand and the heat of the sun because I'm in it. And like the Fennec rebuilding scene for me is I'm watching that now through Boba's eyes, right? Where this is his opportunity. This is where he can bring her. And he's watching what it means. It's not just the plot. Hey, she got saved. This is how they stuck some, organic stuff in her guts. It's watching the pride of that guy. It's the listening to the music. It's the guy switching out his own arm to show the value of it, the art of it, to show the pride of it. Of like, I'm not just saving her life. I am making her something different. She is being reborn, right? Mm-hmm. And building up to that. To me, final great shot of the blue fluid in the blood. And now she is something more and different. And I get more out of that because I get more of those thoughts flowing through me because I have the time to sit in that scene and think about those things.
Yeah, I'm with you on that because it's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Of even though sometimes I might know the end result, say, Andor, we know he dies, right? Right. There's still great value in going back and revisiting his journey. I think there's something that same kind of vibe in what I'm talking about here, where when you're really sitting with the scene. So I don't think it's fair to bring up the pacing. I think it's not necessarily pacing issues. It's just pacing differences.
I really agree with that. I think it is slower than standard pacing. And if that is something that people don't like, I totally understand and appreciate that. And I just wanted to offer my perspective about what I get out of it. It is about sitting in it and letting your mind wander and therefore get deeper into the scene. Let your mind wander not away from the scene, but into the scene.
Yeah, and in the end, that's it. That's the thing. It's like you're seeing something that is there. You're not imagining it. The pacing is just different. It doesn't mean a scene can't go a little second longer here, there, just that. You know, I'm not a great editor, but there's a lot of choices you make as an editor to say like end here. But you're right. I think it does not. Again, this show is not beholden to any formula but its own right now.
Yep, and a lot of times Star Wars is edited to be the whiz-bang adventure, right? And sometimes for some tastes, it even gets too fast. The Rise of Skywalker pace is too much whiz-bang adventure serial speed. Not enough conversations, not enough lingering for a lot of people. But I think that was truly the intent of that film, and I think the intent of Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett is much more Western, much more like indie film exploration of characters that just slow down and spend some time with Boba. Yeah. I think for me, this isn't something I disliked, but it's a thought that I'm fascinated by. So I just wanted to bring it up real quickly, and we'll go to break here. Is I did feel like this episode, it requires watching Mandalorian. Like you could absolutely, or maybe I'll phrase that as a question. I feel like it's possible that it requires watching Mandalorian. You could watch this episode and you could know everything that happened. You could know, he searched for his armor in the Sarlacc and he didn't find it. I guess he found it somewhere else because he's got it now. But I feel like if you had not seen The Mandalorian and were just trying to watch Book of Boba Fett, a viewer might be a little bit like, but he said so much about getting his armor back. Where'd he get it? How'd he find it? You know?
Right. Yeah, no.
How do you feel about that?
I think it's there. Yeah, no, I think you're right. It's there. It's one of the things. It's like I'll never know, right? Because I've seen Mandalorian, and those flares come up, and I went yeah, and it hits all the points where you're not completely lost. You can fill in the blanks, but it's definitely it's the catalyst Rogue One argument, right?
Yeah. I think it's intriguing to me because The Mandalorian, especially the season 1, was so celebrated for it's an entry point to Star Wars. And I think, you're not totally lost. You can figure out exactly what's going on, certainly emotionally and practically. You have the answers. Like, he looked and he found. Well, we saw the Jawas take it, so I guess he got it back from the Jawas. Like, I don't think you're totally lost, but I feel like it is structured with the assumption that the massive majority of viewers has watched The Mandalorian.
Yeah, and that's Star Wars is probably always going to be that, right?
Yep, I think there's always going to be an element of that. Maybe there'll be some new jumping on points, but there's always going to be an element of that. Yep. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to dive into some of the canon, lore connections, action moments, comedy moments, all sorts of great stuff. We will be back in just a moment. And we are back to continue our discussion of Chapter 4 of the Book of Boba Fett. We are going to dive into some of the canon lore connections to other stories. Ken, I tried to track some down and want to ask your opinion about them and see if there's any that you jumped up in front of your face and grabbed you. I really like seeing the bantha carcass in the sands early on because we've seen a lot of carcasses. In the sands of Tatooine. How did you feel about seeing a bantha carcass?
Well, now again, my parent super-sized love of banthas is just off the charts here. So now it kind of breaks my heart. But no, it's Tatooine. Bones on the Tatooine desert is it's something I need to see.
Yeah, and I also for me, I liked it right off the bat because it was a little bit of like a canon thing of like, this is a tradition that goes back to a New Hope with dragon bones, right? Mm-hmm. But it also really framed it right away as Tatooine is harsh. This is an episode about life and death, and there's a living bantha walking by a dead bantha. Is, real on the nose.
Circle of life.
The circle of life. Next thing I noted is getting to see the Gamorreans in their guard outfit that we know from Return of the Jedi, and there's been a lot of passionate Gamorrean feelings about. you could form teams. Are you team topless Gamorreans? Are you team classic leather shirt Gamorreans? And I also liked that they had the very prominent Kenner axe that came with the Gamorrean Guard action figure, which can be seen in Return of the Jedi, but not super clearly. And they did have them, the Gamorreans did have them in the arena in Mandalorian Season 2. But for me, it was just kind of a treat having that action figure back in the day to see, traditional uniform with the Kenner axe specifically.
Yeah, no, I loved it. And the Gamorreans in Mando and Boba Fett have, there's been a lot of conversations around them. The fighting ones in Mando Season 2, I still like those. I guess I just had to accept that those are taller, thinner Gamorrean guards. They're in better shape there. And even our old pal Jennifer Landa put out a great TikTok video and YouTube short about the differences, and I think you all should check it out. The scene, it was a real treat to see the old style, Joseph, and it made me like the shirtless ones even more.
They are embracing change, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gamorreans can be topless. Yeah. I also really loved going into, of course, the kitchen of Jabba's palace, Boba's palace now, Bib's palace then, and seeing some familiar droids. We saw the COO series cook droid, which is like the one on the Genderian Valley refugee ship in Attack of the Clones that R2's getting food for to bring to Anakin and Padme. So that was cool to see.
Absolutely. I love it. And we I'll make my weekly Favreau in the kitchen joke there. He loves cooking, as do I. So it was fun to see in action. And again, I think it's I love this thing of Favreau, who has at times been outspoken about, I don't know about the prequels. Here's a prequel droid. Love it.
In particular, Attack of the Clones. Book of Boba Fett keeps pulling specifically from Attack of the Clones, which is really great. And I actually just really like the design of that droid. The weird different head and just all the multi-arms. It's one of those droids that, like, I've had friends over the years who've made the jokes of like, why is C-3PO just like the human thing? Like, wouldn't there be more, practical applications of droids? Like, yeah, look at this guy. Look at this Cook Series droids. It just has a bunch of cooking arms.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Then it was a sad beat, but it looked like that frog that the Cook droid slaps down into this dude did look like the same ones that that Grogu snacks on Sorgan.
Well, there you go. More life is a circle.
More life is a circle. And then, of course, what is labeled in the subtitles, the sous chef droid is the same model as EV-99 in EV series. That is not EV-99 because EV-99 is busy at Chalmers Cantina.
That's right. Or maybe EV-99's got pulling double duty. Times are tough. But yeah, no. Similar voice too. But yeah, I love seeing that.
Yeah. And then a big one, I think, for us. I squealed, Ken. I almost woke my wife, I'm sure, as she was sleeping in the bedroom and I was watching at midnight. The LEP droid or rabbit droid, which first appeared in the Clone Wars and appeared everywhere in the Clone Wars, doing many different things. Just a delightful little weirdo of a droid. I loved seeing that droid spring from animation into live action and have a very interesting scene with Boba Fett.
And then to know that Boba keeps him around. He turns it back on at one point, clearly, because he's there at the meeting there at the end. So, or maybe it's another one, but I'm going to choose to think it's the same one. I loved it. I love seeing it again. Grace slipped for it. She has maybe seen 10 seconds of the Clone Wars when she's passed in the living room. So no connection to that. Just seeing it as a brand new droid really brought joy for her, and then just to see me, and it looks so good. Little almost like a little stop motion, almost a little Phil Tippett studio action going on there. Maybe, I don't know. It was great.
Yeah, and really making the most of those ear things to convey emotion, right?
That little mouth.
The little mouth. It's so great. I think for me, is somebody who grew up with the original trilogy, grew up with that aesthetic that was capable of being created back then. And then the prequels came out and there's lots of different sort of different shapes and sizes and some things that are even more cute or weird and having a little bit of resistance to that back in the day and then coming around to just entirely embracing it. It just makes me so happy to watch kind of cute, weird little prequel era aesthetic character just shuffling around in the same place as, EV-99.
Yeah, no, look, there would have been a point maybe 10 years ago that I would have watched this scene and said, this is ridiculous. This does not belong in Star Wars. Star Wars is not cute and funny. Anyways, I'm going to go watch Return of the Jedi and Ewoks again. Like that would have been me. I really loved it. Good, awkward comedy, really awkward comedy, played well by Fennec of, you done here? Can we go? I loved everything about that.
Yeah, it's just great. I'm sure we'll talk about those beats a little bit more when we get to comedy, whimsy, and weirdness. And along those lines, we got to see one of those double wide gonks called the Plunk or PLNK
Yep.
droid.
Yep.
And then it was used very well in a very tactical video game way of like, bad guys, you stood by the explosive. I'm going to shoot it from far away.
Yes, I wrote down in my notes, rest in power, Plunk droid. Rest in power.
Rest in double wide power, Plunk droid. I also just like seeing the skiffs. Seeing a skiff in the garage, seeing skiff wreckage in the sands. How'd you feel about that?
I love seeing it. Oh my gosh! By the wreckage next to the Sarlacc, I have freeze framed that so many times this morning, and just looked through it and just had a Star Wars nerd chill daydream of just like Leia and Han and Luke were on that, and that's where Boba Fett hit and he tumbled in. Oh my! I loved that shot. It was a great perspective, just flying over it like you're in a helicopter, not the fire spray. Loved all that there. It was great, and I could spend the whole day touring Jabba's palace. I wanted that little droid to fly around and give me the schematics of everything.
Oh, right. That was definitely like one of those, also a kind of a video game moment where it feels like, okay, well, you're supposed to be doing that tactically, but I would probably, if I was piloting that, just go around weird places and stare at things.
Cool.
Yeah. There's the great line from Fennec Shan of the mayor's major domo was singing like a Yuzum. Yuzum, of course, being the species of the controversial singer in the special edition of Return of the Jedi, Joe Yowza.
Yeah.
Yep. Singing like a Yuzum, which is great then because the shot that not everyone is a fan of, understandably, where Joe Yowza sings right into the camera and you see down his throat. You get to imagine a shot like that with the major domo, which is fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Final one I had to write down from you. I had already written it down, and then somebody tweeted at us at ForceCenter. A little callback to one of your favorite lines in Rogue One, where there is a question of what is being proposed.
Yes, but in Aqualish, what is he proposing and what is she proposing in Aqualish? Loved it.
Yeah. So that was it. I didn't feel like I felt like they were more kind of like a surface level fun aesthetic. It's fun to see that again. It's fun to hear that mentioned, as opposed to some of the episodes of Book of Boba Fett where it feels like big canon things have been like, let's really examine this from a different perspective.
Yeah. For me, there was a couple of things that I noted that I loved in the kind of the connections of the stories and lore here. First of all, I just love going to Mos Eisley. And anytime you visit there, I love even in the replay of the Fennec scene that when he finds her body, and knowing that Mos Eisley is over there because she's heading somewhere, right? I forget the exact lines from that episode. She's kind of
I think she's meeting someone there.
Yeah. And wasn't Boba Fett, as we now know. I just love seeing Mos Eisley there. It warms my New Hope love and heart. And then I have never been a huge fan of what I've always called the Little Shop of Sarlacc Special Edition Beak. But over the years, the fire for that has just faded away, right? There's more things in life and Star Wars to worry about. But to see it here and the way it was used was so effective. Any doubts I had about that beak, I'm won over. That was terrifying, and loved the use of it there. It was a great fun callback for me.
Oh yeah, we can talk about it more with action, but that was a horror movie, right? And like, what is that circle? Oh Lord, that was disturbing and absolutely great. Yeah, and to your Mos Eisley point, I also liked that Fennec's like a lot of great mechanics in Mos Eisley, and feels like, is that Pelimoto's second popping up in Book of Boba Fett?
Yeah. And again, I love anytime we go back there. Final one for me, just lore to Mando, right? We're only 2 years out. It's crazy to think. But seeing those flares go up, when the first one goes up, I think I saw it wrong. And I thought, maybe it's a ship coming, right? I couldn't tell. And the second one goes up, the music cue plays. And I had one of those, like sit up straight kind of like, oh my God, we're crossing the timelines. And I just, to me, similar to what I said with the Little Shop of Sarlacc Beak there, I've mentioned this before, but I always want to pause when this kind of comes up for me as a fan, and maybe out there listening, you have a similar experience. I've said before, season 1, chapter 5, not my favorite thing of Mandalorian, but it's got some stuff in it I love. The Tusken stuff really kind of begins there, and going to the cantina, all those kind of things are there. And it's got a great sequence, though. That flare sequence is wonderful. So here it is, though, a couple years later, and it's directly mentioned, and Toro Calican's over the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And all I'm experiencing is joy as a Star Wars fan. I'm not grumpy about this. I'm not worried about any complaints I had about that, which maybe were legit at the time. But I just think when you take that journey with Star Wars, this is what happens more often than you think. You might not like Attack of the Clones, but suddenly you're like, that shot's from Attack of the Clones, that droid's from Attack of the Clones, and there it happens.
Yeah, that seismic charge, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, is from Attack of the Clones. Yeah. No, I think that's such a great example of, we can have whatever opinions we want about an individual chapter, and sometimes there's something we don't like. Obviously, a lot of people didn't like Toro Calican. A lot of people in that first season of Mandalorian were, so excited to put our foot on the gas of the Grogu story and felt like, what are we doing in chapter 4 and 5? Where's this going? And all understandable feelings to have at the time, but then it's just amazing. To me, it is just always a reminder to myself as a viewer to try to have patience, because like Toro Calican, is the least important part of that episode right now. Like I think he's got great purpose in that episode, and we don't need to go into that. You can listen to our old review of that episode. But that episode now is about, like, that's where the Tusken adventure began. That's where Boba Fett met Fennec Shan. Like, that's where we first met Pelimato, this character who keeps being a part of the story. And that episode has blossomed in so many ways, and it's always fun to watch a new episode and go like, what in this episode that I'm maybe not paying attention to right now might be huge, might be fundamental, might be like changed later.
Yeah, love that. You never go back and see them the same way again, those episodes.
Yeah, exactly. Great catches there. Let's move into action. Did you have some favorite action moments?
I did want to note that the Boba Fett versus the LAPD series story. I called him the rat catcher because it's kind of how it was referred to. I do love the whole sequence, and it was funny. It was totally silly. It was totally a little weird and awkward. I love everything about that, including him just pressing a big off button. Just everything, almost a non-action moment. But just also Boba Fett bringing the intensity to that confrontation, just as he brings it to every other confrontation.
And did you just take it as like we're really trying not to be noticed?
Yeah.
And hey, that little rat catcher could sound the alarm. Got to get him.
Absolutely. That's what it was.
Yeah, I also just felt like there was a dynamic where Boba was really letting Fennec take the lead. He wasn't just asking for her help or asking for her to follow him, right? And I felt like that was a part of the dynamic of like sneaking, huh? Not as familiar with that one. Oh, you're cutting these bars, sneaking. Okay, cool. And he's not that great at it. It's like, I see, sneaking. I will smash this big pot over and make a lot of noise. I'm sneaking. Good, right?
Yeah, this was Battlefront 2, and it's me. I am going all by myself, front facing that gate, blaster firing, and I would die.
Oh, yeah. No sneaking, just a lot of blasting. Yeah, that's a great one. This is kind of an action moment for me, but the first one that really got me is Fennec's little probe is cool, and seeing the diagram that she gets.
Yeah.
It really video game moment, but I also just love the moment that the probe buzzes through the gate at the last second. It's like, it's a well-known, trod action moment, but they're just buzzing in right before the door closes. It worked for me. It was really fun.
I was expecting it to pick up Indiana Jones's hat. It was so close.
Exactly. Another one for me is I wrestled with whether to put this in an action moment or comedy moment, but the chef droid from Attack of the Clones doing an impression of General Grievous from Revenge of the Sith. And working up, I got all these knives and I got all these arms swinging. Do you really want to step to me? And then the undercut of just the quiet slice of the neck is a great contrast.
Oh, Fennec was great throughout this entire episode, but that was a fun moment too. Yeah, I almost wanted to see what he would do in that fight, like both the droid and Boba Fett. Like, how's this going to play out? That was a tough one. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that the chef droid was actually had some moves, or was that all intimidation?
I think it was a little intimidation. Part of its program. Who knows? In Jabba's palace, things might have got a little hairy back in the day, so even in Bib. So a little call may call and be there, but we didn't get to see that fight, thankfully.
Yeah. What are some other moments for you?
And kind of the big escape moment, jumping to that, getting the ship out. Fennec is great all the way through. We could highlight almost everything, and I think we will. And you talked about shooting the plunk droid. I totally made that note too. Of that's what you do in a video game. That's what you do. But I love the brutal headshots. Speaking of video games, so many bonus points, headshot points. Like her XP is going up. Really good. Just love seeing her in action.
Yeah, there are a couple moments from that big escape I liked. I liked, again, that, even though Boba was literally piloting the ship, Fennec was kind of driving that fight. I love the neck chop to the Gamorrean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I put that down, too. She got some great moves. Got to see in display there, the Gamorrean and the Nikto.
Yeah, and I like that Boba takes one down, too, the Gamorreans, and they kind of compliment each other. Like, oh, yeah, we both have game. That's great. But there's something about, like, just really seeing her, like... Boba is obviously using sort of like brute strength and a big stick, and she's like so precise.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then there's so many moments I could list. There's one where she kind of spins just as she's being shot at and takes out the person shooting at her. But the utter confidence of her kind of shouting to Boba about exactly what to do, of like, turn now, and Boba's like, all right.
Yeah.
And she tells him to close the ramp, right? And bullseyes that counterweight just as the ramp closes, and has that look of like, I'm good. I'm very good.
Yeah. So great. So great.
It's so great. It's so confident, and it's so her skill set.
Yeah. Yeah. This was definitely a Fennec Shines episode. She's been killing it all through, literally through the show, but no, I love this.
Yeah, and it's true. There's been memes about her. She keeps offering, like, do you want me to kill them? Like, this is a flashback, but she got her wish. I also just really liked, for another big moment in this chapter that had a lot of really heartfelt stuff about we are all stronger together, and had some real whimsical moments with Banthas and LEP droids, that it also had just vengeance. I really liked the scene of Fett in his ship just mercilessly taking down that Nikto gang. There was something about it that was kind of like cold and removed, but also so intense and vicious. And you get that sort of double pleasure of hearing that ship's really iconic cannons go off, and you're just waiting for it. Like, get close enough so I can hear that sound. You hear the sound, and then, to just put a button on it, to see the look on his face, just the curl of his lip, in such contrast to the kind of mercy and kindness and even connection he showed to the Bantha, and then looking over to Fennec of like, are you cool with that? And they're not, of like, good job. That's the way you do it.
Yeah. Well said on all of that there. And it does, even the big theme of what we've been talking about, even going back to the Mando's second season, where it's like, it's a new and improved Boba, but man, he is sure confirming his stance on violence if you get in his way. I love that. And here's the thing, like, obviously, the death of the Tusken tribe is still probably a hot button issue, as it should be, but I think I was always like, he's going to get his revenge. We're going to see that. And sometimes as that can play out as like, is it going to be slow? Is it going to be 3 episodes? Is it the rest of the flashback arc during the show? Like, I didn't know how it was going to play out. And to see that, no, the answer is he gets his ship back and destroys them in seconds ended up being the answer that I needed.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it more. Fennec obviously has a line addressing, who's really responsible.
Yeah.
So I think we can chat about that more as we get to talking about what might happen in upcoming weeks. But yeah, I agree with you of wondering, like, how does he move right from the scene of that horrific tragedy and go track down the Nikto gang, and getting this great answer of like, no, I am going to find lots of firepower, and I'm going to unleash it.
Yeah, I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to play a game. I'm not a Bond villain where I'm going to slowly tell them my plan. I'm going to get my beloved ship that I cry when I see again, and I'm going to destroy you.
Yep. Yeah, yep. It's a little rusty, but it's still working. Moving on. I imagine we both had moments that we really enjoyed in that Sarlacc sequence. So,
Yeah.
give me your thoughts on the action beats there.
It was really put together well. First of all, I had that because he goes, for the Nikto gag, and then the next shot is Sarlacc pit. I literally was like, is he just going to drop the seismic charge in there? Like, I thought he was just going to be like, and then I'm going to destroy that bleeper too. Boom, 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 boom. All right.
I thought the same things, like Nyctos, then the Sarlacc, then there's a printer that used to piss me off, and I'm going to blow that to hell.
The scene from Office Space. Die, blankety blank,
Exactly.
die, blankety blank. Yes, I loved it. But yeah, no, it plays out so well. It turns into, like I said, you said, a nice horror sequence there. I call them the seismic charges part 3. Actually, I guess part 4 is, I think, the 4th detonation we've seen, right, on screen.
Ooh, a great trivia contest. I'll try to do some math in my head.
I don't compete no more. I think they're, so everything about it. And, seismic charges is my favorite sound in Star Wars. So to hear it again in such a fashion. Wow. I love that scene.
Yeah, it was so great because I think that's one of those moments where, kind of knowing the armaments of that ship, you're like, when is it going to come? How did you feel about the twist that Boba is just fighting to keep the ship from being swallowed up? Boba's fighting to have the same fate happen to him again,
Right.
of getting swallowed by this thing, and it is Fennec who releases our beloved seismic charges. How did you feel about that?
I loved it. I think number one, she saves the day. She's great, but also just like, if you put him back in that spot, that's like if you ever ate like a bad food and then you have to face it down again. You don't want to do that. These mushrooms again, no.
Yeah, like for me, it's like the first time I had rum didn't go well, and I had to face that fear. Yeah, and there's just so many great moments, great shots, just kind of like the power of just like I'm staring into the mouth of this thing that almost destroyed me.
Yeah.
But I love Fennec going like, this isn't going to work, and the shot of her taking the seatbelt off and falling onto the glass.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing the snap, and just seeing like, no, she really has control of her fear. And then the seismic charge itself, right under the surface, and seeing everything rattle. It's so great.
Yeah, well, good put together sequences all the way around.
Yeah. I think final things for me is obviously I really loved the Chrysanthemum loses it scene. And I love all the different ways that Star Wars presents action. Sometimes it's just a fun thrill. Sometimes it's kind of a tragedy that a fight is happening at all. And this one kind of has a little bit of that, like, this is fun, but obviously not good. This is not equals. This is just a mean drunk Wookiee working out some feelings on these Trandoshans. But I did love, as you highlighted, a very Western shot where, Boba is walking in, and then the Trandoshan just hits the wall. And the part of what works so well about that wonderful, wonderful speech from Garsa Fwip is that the aesthetic of the sanctuary matches what she's saying, of like, look, we're still gambling, we're still drinking, we just kind of got our pinkies up in here. We have potted plants. Does Chalmers have potted plants in Rundown Old Mos Eisley? No, it does not. We're a potted plant place. I just really like the highlight of the Trandoshan hitting the wall and the potted plant falling over.
Yeah. We went to Pier 1 Imports over in Mos Espa.
Exactly. And then, it was a great button to the depth of the scene, but the limb hitting the ground was a good action moment.
Add that to the Star Wars Severed Limb t-shirt, I guess.
We can do a ranked. We can do a Star Wars ranked of favorite limb removals.
Love it. Yeah, I'm with you. I mentioned it, but they had Chrysanthemum's kind of drunk rage. There's just something about it, and not that I've gotten drunk at a bar and ripped arms off, but just where you tried. So it's almost like he was trying not to. He almost like he knows he shouldn't do this, but with each sip, it was gonna happen.
It was gonna happen. Any other action moments for you?
No, a lot of it. And again, all the sequences well put together. The director has that kind of history as a dance choreographer, directing Mortal Kombat. It just made sense and showed in the scenes there.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on then to moments of comedy, whimsy, weirdness. What you got here?
Well, the first one was the modifier. We should shout out was played by Thundercat Stephen Bruner. I had to look that up a little bit. I'm familiar with the name. When I saw it in the credits, he did some work with Haim, which is one of my favorite bands. Also, Ludwig Göransson did as well. But he played bass in Suicidal Tendencies for a long time, and a later part of the Tendencies run there. I thought he was great as the modifier, and I love that even in the mod parlor, appointments are needed, and appointments is a running theme in Book of Boba Fett.
Appointments and water and abandonment. Yep, all big themes in Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, love that.
I guess whimsy weirdness. I guess it kind of counts. I loved the mood of the mod parlor, and I think there is also for me in Book of Boba Fett. It might not be to everybody's taste, and I really understand and respect that. But it feels like there's a very Lucas-like cheekiness where things can have meaning. Sometimes things can be cool, and sometimes things can be like, yeah, no, this guy's named Savage Opress,
Right.
or that's the way my child pronounced corn fritters. So this guy's name is Orn Frita. A certain kind of, it's meaningful, but it's cheeky to have mod make sense in Galaxy for modifier, but it's also like they are so coded from mods in 60s culture and future years as well, but those scooters being, as many people pointed out, so blatantly from Quadrophenia. I kind of liked that wordplay.
No, it made it all kind of not make sense, but just, I don't know, just smooth was smooth and flowed into even the stuff back into the stuff from last week. I love kind of seeing them there, and really, there's this timeline discussion of how long Boba Fett was where and for doing what. But so when it showed back up and the colorful speeder bikes, colorful Vespa bikes were there, I was like, oh, here we go again, even in the past. But then I realized, I guess not so much in the past.
No, I mean, it feels like it goes with the great speech about times have changed, and these are young people with new ideas who really want things to change and think, in fact, that 41-year-olds like Boba Fett can't get with that change because they're too old.
Too old, man.
Too old, man. What are some other moments of comedy or whimsy for you?
I did love the modifier going, well, you should have started with that. Fun little beat. But moving on from the modifier parlor there, come on, Bantha tongue kisses and the Bantha all hungry and those big Bantha eyes and that mouth. I just going back to even Mando season 2 is when they really started to you seen them up close and personal. I just never knew I was as big of a Bantha fan.
Well, just giving them so much personality, right? They're not just these kind of strange, otherworldly beasts of burden, elephants, but not really. Now they're creatures. They're friends. They wag their tail. The tail wag. The tail wag got me, and I love that Boba Fett is like, oh man, if you cross him, he will murder you with relish. But he's just such a sweetheart, too. I know some people don't like that, but I really like that humanizing contrast. So I really liked find other banthas, make bantha babies, or make baby banthas. Make baby banthas.
Love it. Yeah, I love everything about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also liked a little bit earlier the talking about the black melons. It takes some getting used to. In time, you start to crave it. That wasn't really a joke to me, but just sort of like there's a little bit of world building and a little bit of speaking to how long Boba's been surviving in this way.
It's like me with vegan chicken patty sandwiches. People don't believe me, but I'm like, after a while, you will crave them.
Yeah, you need them. You need them. We talked about the comedy in the fight with the LEP droid, but I really did like there's at least 2 beats in this episode where he says, I am Boba Fett.
Yes.
And I like that once he captures this comical little rabbit droid, that he does kind of try to intimidate the rabbit droid by saying, I am Boba Fett. It so works. The LEP droid just reach into their own shut off button. I thought it was funny. And I think it was like a little cathartic to like, sometimes I'm in a situation where I'd be like, if I could just shut off my power button and just power down, that would be my ideal in this situation. I guess I have to be responsible and face it, but I'd rather just reach down to my chest and power down.
Well, I just would love to know a little history there. That droid's probably been around a bit there in that castle, so he might remember him from some incidents before. So I love.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What are other moments for you?
A couple more for me there. You mentioned it, but I would definitely comedy. But Fennec's nod of approval after Fett takes out the biker gang. Just keep it with that ongoing theme, that recurring joke of her like, "I can kill him. Do you want me to kill him? I can kill him. I can kill him," and her just being like, "Oh, good, you killed him." Yeah, I love that. That's kind of the start of the journey with that.
Yeah, I did like next time don't touch my buttons because
Yeah.
Boba Fett's really he's asking for Fennec's help and following her lead, but a little bit of also like I don't know I make the seismic charge choices.
Well, limited supply at this point, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think last one for me is it was great to have Max Rebo's name, at least part of it, used, and just the joke that we've talked about a lot lately of bands and these kind of clubs need to recognize exactly when violence and conflict is starting or
Mm.
drums are approaching, so they can stop playing and when to pick it up again. And it was a fun twist to have the host actually just say, "Hit it, Max."
Hit it, Max. Yeah, we need that shirt real quick. Like, hit it, Max.
Oh, I'm sure it's there. Any more for you?
I did mention before, but Boba Fett going spelunking in the Sarlacc. I'm glad we didn't see it. I don't need to spend all my time in the Sarlacc, but it's just, I had a lot of fun just imagining him roaming around, but then also coming out and Fennec dumping like water on his head, or like you need to find a back to take. Just like, what? Come on, this is silly. You got it. You're gonna die down there. Let's get out of here. Just a fun kind of weird moment.
Yeah, yeah, and I do like that he just said there's just junk down there. I would love a cutscene of just like all the, just garbage he finds there. Or is there something really important? Is there like, a third Sith Wayfinder that nobody knows about? He's like, what's this junk?
Nothing, a holocron. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Any directorial moments that jumped out at you? We always like to celebrate those since we get
Yeah.
different directors for different chapters.
Yeah, again, some of the shots that you mentioned, the Fennec looking through the closing door after she hits the counterweight, really good. I love that there. Just the stage and everything. The Sarlacc's point of view, so to speak, of looking up through the Sarlacc back at Slave One as it's full around. It just was
Mhm.
a really fun scene, real Star Warsy, in that sense of you're on the playground and daydreaming about maybe Fett's flying over the Sarlacc. It just again, the Return of the Jedi kid me loved the use of it all, but just love it was very artistic, if you will. The Sarlacc was shot very well, very beautiful. The Sarlacc got a great close up. I loved it.
Yeah, it's absolutely great and beautiful. That was one that I definitely noticed. I really like the shot coming up from the Sarlacc
Mm.
and the ship really filling it. It was it's one of those shots that makes you feel, to me, what Boba Fett felt of like I'm facing this again.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. I also liked really early on that transition from the twin suns to the triple moons.
Mm.
It's just so beautiful, and the triple moons have been established in other great shots, including in Attack of the Clones, I believe.
Yeah.
That was really cool to see.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I do love the time we're spending on Tatooine, and it's pops up every now and again. Should other planets have been Tatooine, or should we leave Tatooine? And yeah, I don't. I enjoy my time on the planet. So it's a planet so central to Star Wars.
Yeah, me too. I feel like yes, if all of the Acolyte takes place on Tatooine, I'll go like, okay, maybe start to question it, but there are reasons that we're here, and I enjoy it.
Totally.
Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you wanted to in this chapter?
I want to want to touch upon the bantha haircut. The bangs of the bantha, I think, are underrated as well. Little almost like Marky Post in the mid '80s kind of look there, and I just enjoyed that. I just want to discuss banthas.
I understand. Yeah, the oh man, the chewing way back in the mouth.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was a thing about it. It's like, yeah, it's a big. I don't know how they accomplished it, but it felt like a big
Mm.
puppet animatronic. It felt like that tradition of Star Wars going back to like that's Mark Hamill, a human, and then there's Yoda, a Muppet.
Yeah.
And that, but it's the emotions still come across.
Yeah, I can't wait to see some of the BTS stuff on that and see how the magic reveal the magic, I guess. But yeah, I love that. I like it could be like, well, we did it small scale with Grogu. Let's make a real bantha.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to hear about that. The other thing, it was in last week as well, but even more prominent this week, is I really like the mod music. I'm sure that there are some people who, maybe it's a little too modern or a little too real world. But for me, the sounds it feels like actual music, evolution of music. It feels like, hey,
Yeah.
okay, boomers and Gen X, you can go listen to your just wailing. It sounds still spacey, but it's got that different energy, and it's got that like that youthful. I'm frustrated with everything, and I want everything to change, and I'm going to be loud about it.
Yeah, we've a couple different styles of music get named or created in Star Wars. Alphabet Squadron had some the wreck punk, right?
Yeah,
Loved all that. So yeah,
yeah, that's High Republic, I think. Is it?
is it?
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. Love that. Love all that stuff there. So yeah, seeing another style of some mod rocking, some mocking,
yeah. Until they tell me what to call it, I'll say mod wailing.
mod wailing.
That was great. Anything else for this chapter before we talk about future weeks, future episodes?
No, absolutely. Let's move on.
Well, then let's dive into that, because I'm very curious about your thoughts. I have a couple thoughts.
Mhm.
Do you have predictions or hopes for next week or the rest of the show?
Well, next week we have Din Djarin, Bo-Katan, Carson Teva. They're sitting there, and then they say, Cara Dune flew back to her home planet, and then we go on this big adventure. That's what it's a big fight, right? That's what we're all
Yep.
expecting, right?
Yep. And if they say Cara Dune flew back to her home planet, they better acknowledge that it's gone, since it's Alderaan.
Yes.
Is
Yes. I it's so on one hand, it's so clear. I know where you can find muscle, and the Mando's music plays, and man, that was fun and exciting. I'm wondering if it's as simple as that, and sometimes I like that to be the answer. Again, you want to destroy the Nikto gang, just go destroy them. I don't need to be have it drawn out. So I do hope that the war really takes off. We've mentioned before we're past trailer footage, so now give me what you got. I want Boba riding a Rancor into battle and versus the Pikes and Din in a new ship, whatever you got to do. Him going, yeah, Grogu's doing great. He sent me a postcard. His school's going wonderful. Like, I don't know if the big, by structure, you don't think the big final fight would be next week, but let's really let's get them all together.
Yeah, I mean, that music cue is a strong, we know what we're doing, right? I mean, that is like, it is just asking people to picture, like, all right, it's the big fight. Boba Fett's riding a Rancor, and Din Djarin's flying around with a darksaber in his hand. Like, it really does invite that thought. So I'm very curious about that. I think the thing that's most intriguing about it is, like, I'm very happy for Din Djarin to show up and to get a little sense of how connected these two shows are, to get a sense of, like, these are both two characters who've had kind of a different path to honor and connection, so it makes sense that they would come together. But also, if it is that Din is traveling with Bo-Katan, the idea that Boba Fett in a show that's about him and about his identity and his past, and is there any room to face, like, how he truly feels about being a Mandalorian? For him, it is not. It's about his connection to his father, but is it about anything else?
I don't think we'll have time for a campsite conversation. By the way, I don't even think Bo-Katan. I'm not necessarily predicting Bo-Katan showing up, but it would make some sense, obviously, where we left everyone. I know, but I think a lot of the Camino stuff. It's clear what it's meant to this story so far, but to actually address it, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I think that would be very interesting. I also think if even if it is just Din, there is this hanging thread of going back to Mandalore and what really happened on Mandalore, and can it be reclaimed? And there's this interesting thread in this chapter where Boba Fett wants to be a leader, he wants control, but it also feels like there is still some strong connection to what Tatooine is, that it's a home, in that it rightfully belonged to the Tuskens, and that he doesn't want to lose Tatooine. Like, that speech about, like, it's not just that the Pikes they're going to kill us, or they're going to take us our money. Is like, they're trying to take our planet. There's a real, like, this is ours, a real connection to place as a part of identity. And that has some great overlap with the Mandalorians.
And again, if all goes well, I don't. Din's not going to turn around, or Bo-Katan or anyone and say, "All right, cool. You want to go to your next adventure on Mandalore, or anything like that?" Because I think you get the sense that he's just really, not even sense. I think he's just said like you said, he's so connected to Tatooine. So yeah, that would make some sense.
Yeah. A couple other things for me. I really wanted to highlight that line when Boba Fett is telling Fennec about his past, and Fennec says, "Speed bikers defeated Tuskens." That's highly unlikely. I think for me, that's a big indication that while the flashbacks might be done, the fallout from the flashbacks is not done.
Yeah.
And I feel like the story of the past and the story of the present might come together in, like you're saying, from Boba Fett's perspective of like, the Nikto gang, perpetrated a horrific crime and they answered for it. They're gone. They're done. That's it.
Yeah.
And he might not have any sense that there's something more to it. But I feel like the past and the present could come together quite a bit if if Boba Fett thinks his motivation is protect Tatooine from the Pikes, and then it becomes personal because the Pikes are the ones who ordered the Nikto to do that, or they actually did that and framed the Nikto. I think that's a possibility that I'm really intrigued by.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And discussing even more, just the idea of that, part of the reason maybe the Nikto storyline goes so fast, could be because there's more coming. And again, that line from I'm wary sometimes, right, of me and speculation are going into it more, but it's like some of those lines just seem to be that they are what they are. The Nikto gang would have done that. The feet of a mysterious creature or mysterious person with spurs on in Mando season 1. If that wasn't Boba Fett, they were going to have some questions to answer, and it is. And so Mando's music, Nikto speeders couldn't have done that. Like, yes, I think this absolutely is leading to something more, which is fun, right? We all enjoy that. I just so love just wondering what's next. Can't wait to get to it.
Yeah. So I'm very intrigued to see that the implications of what happened to them past are going to still be a part of the present. It's not like, great, wipe the hands, walk on. At least that's to me what that line indicates. Like you're saying, it's pretty straightforward. I think another big thing for me that I'm really interested to see how much of a conflict it's going to be is can Chrysanthemum be trusted, right? Because we've had this theme where Boba Fett wants to give people a chance. And Fennec in that first chapter just straight up says, don't giving the Gamorreans a chance is a mistake. And so far, Boba Fett's been right. They've been there and they've helped him. And he's put a Gamorrean in his own Bactopod, right?
Yeah.
And it's worked out with the Mod gang, and it's worked out with Fennec. And I kind of feel like a part of the point of that Chrysanthemum scene is that's not Chrysanthemum. He's not going to change. And what's going to happen when you're trying to build this coalition? Boba Fett's trying to be realistic about the world, the way he talks about the gangs of like, yeah, they're going to let somebody else fight this war for them. They're self-involved. I don't trust them, but they're not stupid. This benefits them, so they'll let it happen. So it's not like he's in some la-la land. It's not being Pollyanna. But did he take a step too far by bringing somebody so incapable of change as Chrysanthemum into the inner circle?
Yeah, that'd be an interesting way to play out that whole kind of theme. And again, I just want Santi to have a good life, man. I'm rooting for him to change. But you're right.
I know I want things to get better. But a part of me is like, definitely seems like some Din suggestion with that music, but also the possibility of, I'm sure the internet's going to be alive this week with bounty hunters on parade. Is this going to be, good old wizened Cad Bane? Is this going to be justice for Dengar? Like, am I finally going to get to see Embo live action, which is what I want? Is the entire Bad Batch in adult Omega going to have a family reunion, right? There are all these possibilities, but one that is really intriguing to me is Bosk, because he's got history with Boba Fett as a kind of crappy mentor figure /
right.
Co-bounty hunter / underling of Boba. He's got some complicated relationships there. And also, if the question is being raised of can Chrysanthemum be trusted, is he going to fight side to side with that bleeping Trandoshan Bosk?
Conversations that could be had between all of them on screen.
Yeah, I want a big campfire between Bosk and Chrysanthemum.
Yes.
Lots of growling, biting, and headbutting. That's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
So those are it for my thoughts about upcoming weeks. Anything else for you?
No. Yes. So can't wait. We truly have set the stage for something big, which is part of the fun and part of what this show does, and what the format of these shows do. So if you've been patient and kind of hung around for these big themes and campfire conversations, I think your just reward is coming.
Yes, exactly. And I think you are very right to point out that it is the big fight is not here yet. Like this,
Yeah.
I felt like this was very teeing up. Like in the next chapter is we're gonna gather our buddies and some pals. So I think that I want to set my expectations of like probably not going to be the big fight next week.
I would love a 5-minute trying to ride a Rancor training sequence.
Absolutely. We can hope. And on that great whimsical note, we are going to close as we always do by imagining what merch we could possibly get based on this episode. If you could have anything, Ken, what would you want?
Well, I think it could be 2 droids day in the sun, and we can finally get like a live, like a actual robot, a rabbit droid. Excuse me, just throwing words out here. The rabbit droid, but like the old BB-8 Spiro ones, where you could control her in your house, like it could run around your house. And then I would love like a practical cooking droid to throw into the kitchen.
Yeah, no, I think that droid could absolutely make my frozen pizzas for me.
Yeah, 100%. I did a lot of chopping up, slicing and dicing yesterday, cooking broccoli and potato kind of based dinner. So I really could have used his help.
Yeah, it was nice that they were making a salad. They're having a balanced meal there. It was very nice. I always love for action figures the Power of the Force 2 era when they had the Cinema Scene 3-pack. They had them for Phantom Menace as well. And I had so much fun fantasizing about which 3 characters can they put in a Cinema Scene 3-pack. And I would love a Cinema Scene 3-pack of the kitchen droids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The EV series and the COO chef cook droid, and then the rat catcher.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
And then I think, obviously, in my mind, there is no doubt there will be multiple Chrysanthemum figures.
Yes.
Hot Toys, Black Series, 3 3/4. Here's what I want, Ken. I want every one of them to come as an accessory, to come with a Trandoshan arm.
Just a bloody floppy Trandoshan arm. Love it.
Yeah, exactly. He's got his blaster, and he doesn't really carry a blaster, does he? At least in this show. Yeah, he's got all his equipment and a Trandoshan arm. Yeah. So lots of fun action figures to be had. Anything else for you?
No, just a real fun episode. Really loved it. And I love as the show grows and 4 chapters and we get even more of the story, more complete story. And I hope you're all still enjoying the journey there. Not that every Star Wars journey is perfect, but man, it sure is fun.
Yeah, I think this is this show for me is firing on many levels, from the sort of deep and meaningful, from the real fan thrill of just spending more time with these droids, these locations, these ideas, and the thrill of who's going to come next, and it will be cool to see them, and also then what will it mean for the characters? All really great stuff. So with that, Ken, do you want to let people know where they can find us?
Yes, I do. We are the Force Center Podcast, who we found on Twitter at Force Center Pod. We're on Instagram, YouTube as well. We are also on Facebook. Like us there at Force Center Podcast. You can get merch at tpublic.com/user/Force Center. Get an audiobook on us by going to audibletrial.com/Force Center. You can also find the podcast a lot of different spots, including Acast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. If you're on Spotify, they now have a kind of a rate and review system there. Throw us a rating if you would. It would help us out. You can also support us directly at patreon.com/Force Center. We have a show exclusive on the companion app right now called Databank Dive. We are close to wrapping up that series, but the episodes will be there. So you want to check it out. And when we tweet out the links, you'll know how to sign up and enjoy that show. You can find me at Ken Napzok or go to my website, kennapzok.com, and have a lot of fun playing music on the weekends live on my show Pop Rockin' Radio on Mixcloud. A lot of Force Center fans popping in there, so look for those notifications, and I'll let you know when I'm going live playing music. Joseph.
Yeah, I hope you can play some mod wailing music. I would enjoy that very, very much.
Got me now.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at Joseph Scrimshaw, and you can check out all of my other comedy adventures on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for the wagging tail of the Bantha, this has been the Book of Boba Fett Report.